it takes about 85% of the calories we're supposed to eat on a daily basis just to meet those nutritional guidelines. So if we overspend on the 15% that's like our discretionary, think of it like a budget. If it's our discretionary dollars and we overspend in that area, we won't have the right number to spend on what will keep us healthy.
The Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics recognizes National Nutrition Month each March to bring focus to healthy living. This year's theme is Personalize Your Plate. It encourages people to choose foods that are healthy and appeal specifically to them. A Kansas State University nutrition specialist says the Dietary Guidelines and this year's theme fit nicely together. On today's Sound Living, benefits of making healthier food choices. Sound Living is a weekly public affairs program produced by Research and Extension at Kansas State University. I'm Jeff Wichman. While healthy eating habits are best established even before birth, K-State Research and Extension nutrition specialist Sandy Procter says that making healthier food choices and better quality of life are never out of reach. Sandy, March is National Nutrition Month, and they're talking about Personalize Your Plate as the theme.
That's right. You know, National Nutrition Month has been around now for several decades. Each year there's a theme, and this Personalize Your Plate, I think, is a really good fit, along with the new set of dietary guidelines, which is encouraging us to make every bite count. And they fit together so nicely because it really is about taking the guidance and taking the foods that are available to us, but really making it fit with our own lifestyle, our own preferences, keeping in mind those healthy guidance and guidelines that are available, but really working to make it so that it becomes a part of us. And that's the way then that we create habits and keep those good habits going.
And this is interesting because there really are a number of foods that don't have cultural boundaries, but there are some that are more prominent in some cultures than others.
Yeah, and we can't just look at foods in the United States, through a single lens, because food is not only about keeping our bodies healthy, and that's really where the dietary guidelines started out. Clear back in the 1980s was these are the nutrients we need to, keep us healthy. And that's still true, but it's about so much more with food than just the nutrients. And so it has to fit our culture. It has to fit our lifestyle. It doesn't do any good to talk about, say, healthy lunches or healthy snacks if you're on the go all the time and we don't talk about how to make those carry with you or how to purchase foods when you're away from home. And some of those things that we know are, the coping mechanisms, the ways that people can make the guidance work for them.
They also talk a little bit about getting some physical activity as well as part of this month.
Absolutely. It doesn't exist in isolation. Being active and fueling yourself for activity with healthy foods and the right amounts of foods is really key to good health. That exercise does so much more than just burn calories. We know that it really helps boost our immune system and decrease inflammation. There are so many positive traits to regular exercise, physical activity, not strenuous, not thinking that you have to have an expensive piece of equipment or a membership to a gym, but really just getting out, enjoying the sunshine when you can, when it's freezing cold, getting out for a few seconds or, realizing that some of the work that you do in your house, like vacuuming or sweeping and those kinds of things that we do on a daily basis, that those are physical activity too. Making sure that you're moving more and putting some real emphasis on physical activity in addition to eating healthily.
The Academy is also encouraging people to eat right for life stages, and that's something that really begins at birth. They focus more as we get into those teenage years and beyond.
Absolutely, and that's really one of the things that's very exciting about the new dietary guidelines this year. For the first time, they focused on the entire lifespan. So not only are they talking about the 2-year-olds to adults that they've always included, but they actually backed up and talk more about healthy nutrition from birth to age 2, so meeting that gap, and emphasis on healthy nutrition before baby is born, so maternal nutrition and the health of both parents. And so it really is a focus on life cycle. And as we age, the same quality of nutrients is important, and it becomes even more essential that we focus on a healthy weight. So that's an emphasis throughout, too.
Maybe no surprise that those teenage years into the 20s, they're looking at building bone density?
Yes, we have a limited time during our lives where we actually are able to add to our bone density. And after about age, I think it's 30, we can maintain bone density, but we don't have the capacity anymore to actually build bone density, except in very specific cases in life, like during pregnancy. But it is really essential that we focus on getting those nutrients and that weight-bearing exercise, physical activity for kids. So healthy play and the foods that contain those valuable nutrients like calcium and protein, those are so essential for growth and for that formation of that good, strong bone formation that really we don't have much of a long window in life to really focus on that. It's just from birth to about age 30.
Not only are we thinking about the dairy, but we're also thinking about non-dairy sources for this.
Well, I think that's another case where science has met public demand. There are many people who aspire very strongly to a healthy lifestyle, healthy diet, that for whatever reason do not include dairy sources. And there are a lot of varieties of non-dairy milks and those types of products to choose from. So it became clear that some of that science needed to point out to the public what really does equate in the dairy choices. And so for the first time, they really are saying that soy-based milks actually have a good deal of the nutrients that are available in dairy products. And so if, for whatever reason, dairy products are not on your plate, those soy-based milks are considered nutritionally, if not equivalent, at least in the same ballpark. And in very many ways are nutritionally equivalent. They have a lot of the same benefits that dairy products do. And so it's good to know because there's so many choices out there that well-meaning families and parents particularly may choose some other type of milk product for their children, thinking that, well, if it's called nut milk or almond milk or something, it must be as good as dairy milk. And really, there are some real shortcomings nutrition-wise in some of those. But the soy-based ones do have a nutritional makeup that is very comparable to dairy-based foods.
In the 20s to 30s, they're mentioning things like reducing your risk for chronic disease.
Well, it's time to start early. We know that chronic disease maybe show up later in life, but if we begin eating healthfully at an early age, we can do things from birth that will help fight off some of those tendencies toward chronic disease. And a good example of that is we know that breastfeeding has real protective effects for both mother and child and against some chronic diseases like overweight and type 2 diabetes in both the child and may prevent overweight in the mother later on. And keeping a healthy weight can be really protective against many of the chronic diseases that Americans suffer from, including heart disease and obesity and its many related illnesses.
They mentioned a number of foods here that we might want to try, like dietary fiber, including more whole grains, legumes, also fruits, vegetables, and then they also talk about getting some folate with beans and peas and leafy vegetables.
Oh, it's just exactly what we've talked about so many times on your show. If you think about my plate is the symbol that represents the Dietary Guidelines. And so really all that science-based information comes forward and is able to be easily interpreted by looking at that icon that shows us that if we have half of our plate fruits and vegetables, and within those groups have a wide variety of choices so that we're getting all those bright colors and all those different textures, and making sure that we keep the portion sizes on our protein sources both varied and we keep the portion sizes small so that we're having adequate amount of protein, but not overeating protein, and then making sure that half of our grains every day are whole grains. We're making some of those choices and food choices that really affect down to the cellular level the most optimal health that we could possibly have just by making some of those choices that can be easily explained through looking at that plate icon. So it really is a neat translation of science into practice.
And really, they just want us to continue doing that in our 30s and 40s. And maybe then in the 40s and 50s, we start to fine-tune things a little bit more in terms of maybe eating less, watching out for that slower metabolism.
That's right. Just about the time we stop adding new bone, we know that our calorie needs drop. Each 5 years, we have sort of a large metabolic rate drop. In other words, it takes less fuel. So if we eat just as healthy and just as much as we did in our 20s, we're going to begin putting on weight. So it really is important to take a good, strong, long view of what we're eating and make sure that we sort of tighten up those portion sizes and that we realize that maybe in our 20s we had some discretionary calories. We could spend calories on sort of those sometimes foods, like foods that contain sugar or higher fat choices that we might have when we snack or, say go out and eat fast food occasionally or whatever it is. You have a little bit more discretionary calories to spend at a younger age. But as we get older, those choices need to be a little bit more on target with those healthy choices. It takes about 85% of the calories we're supposed to eat on a daily basis just to meet those nutritional guidelines. So if we overspend on the 15% that's like our discretionary, think of it like a budget. If it's our discretionary dollars and we overspend in that area, we won't have the right number to spend on what will keep us healthy.
And 60s and beyond, we're looking primarily at maintaining muscle and doing some things that will maybe increase some of our protein content.
I think that's a really good point. If we work to increase our muscle mass or at least maintain it, it has a tendency to begin to fade as we age. And so when you think about some of the really exciting programming that goes on in Extension in Kansas, like the Stay Strong, Stay Healthy, Walk Kansas, and the Walk with Ease programs that all feature some of that physical activity and weight bearing and strength and resistance training over time as we age, when we build more muscle, it requires then more protein to keep that muscle mass, but it also actually helps us burn more calories. So we stay more fit when we are more fit. It's sort of this self-feeding prophecy, I guess, that if we work to build that muscle, it is actually going to help us stay using more calories, and it is going to help us feel more comfortable being active. And so it's a gift that continues to keep on giving.
I think maybe the big takeaway for me on this was the fact that if we learn how to eat nutritionally from the get-go, it's going to be easier as we move through these life stages, and there's really not that much adapting to do if you're already eating healthfully to begin with.
You have really identified a key point, and this is one of the reasons why we encourage in early childhood nutrition, we encourage parents to really realize what a base they're setting for their children to become competent eaters, to be able to make healthy choices and to make the healthy choice the easy choice, and to opt for healthful foods when they think about a snack or when they are grabbing food on the go. By helping kids learn to do that early, it becomes a lifelong pattern, and they launch and go off on their own. And I know you and I have talked about that with our own kids. They go off on their own, and they continue to make healthful choices, and they continue to seek out opportunities to broaden their diet selections and to cook healthy foods and all those practices that sort of got the start at home. We can do that with helping our kids learn from a very early age about making healthy choices. But the really good news is it can start anytime. It doesn't have to start in childhood. That's going to give us the most insurance against some of those chronic diseases. But it is never too late to start eating more healthfully.
That's K-State Research and Extension Nutrition Specialist Sandy Procter. The Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics has additional information online at eatright.org. If you'd like to know more about health and nutrition programs offered by Extension, contact your county or district extension office. Sound Living is a weekly public affairs program produced by Research and Extension at Kansas State University. I'm Jeff Wichman, and this is the K-State Radio Network.